Hi there, listener, and welcome to episode 93 of the Ski Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Listener, you've made the right choice, as this is an award-winning podcast, recently voted the best winter sports podcast in the Sports Podcast Awards. Today, we're going to be chatting about Ischgl, Les Deux Alpes, Vallandry, and a unique mountain triathlon in Courchevel. But first, I'd like to thank Switzerland Tourism for their support. As we move into summer, it's worth remembering there are 65,000 kilometres of waymarked trails in Switzerland. And take a listen to back episode 76, if you'd like to hear my report from the Via Valais trail last summer. Now, my name is Ian Martin. I'd like to introduce my guest today. Firstly, I'm delighted to welcome on the show for the first time, Lindsay Devon from Heaven Publicity. Hi, Lindsay, how are you?
Very good, Ian. Lovely to be invited. Thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. And a regular guest, we have Al Morgan from Ski Kit Info. Hi, Al.
Hi, Ian.
Let me start by asking the regular question for my guests. When did you last ski or snowboard? Let's start with you, Lindsay.
Not this week, the week before.
Oh, that's not bad. Where were you?
Well, I was staying in Chable, down below Verbier, and I was skiing in the Verbier and the Four Valleys. And we had only gone for a few days, but extended because that massive storm of powder came in, and it was phenomenal.
That's nice. So you just decided to extend your trip because there was extra snow, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were supposed to go home on a Friday, so we said, gosh, we might as well stay the weekend and come home on the Monday.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And Al, I suspect it might be the same as when we last spoke, but when did you last ski?
I was away across the 2 weeks of Easter in the Paradiski area, staying in Vallandry on the Les Arcs side. Yeah, it was awesome.
Right. That's right. I recall now we spoke about this in the last episode. I mean, let's just have a little chat about Vallandry now. Did you take your kids to the kind of flora and fauna animal museum at the top of the gondola?
Yeah, how cool is that? So we haven't been in 2 years because of the pandemic. And they've got a new lift from Vallandry, a bubble that runs up. And at the top of the bubble, they've got a whole new learners area for kids, which is awesome. So kids can go up, take their first turns, learn to ski up there. Makes it really snowshoe up at that height. But they've got this big building at the top of the lift, which is they've got an indoor and outdoor picnic area with vending machines. You can get bread and cheese and ham and jams and all sorts of stuff, and ace hot chocolate. But they've got a mountain wildlife, flora and fauna, as you rightly say, museum, and it's pretty cool. So yeah, the kids spent a lot of time in there. There's also free Wi-Fi. There's a screen to entertain the kids in there. So on those wet days, because we did have one day that was wet and a bit blowy, you could kind of take a bit of refuge and shelter in there. What
did you think of the new gondola in Vallandry then? You've been to Vallandry before, have you?
I have, yeah. So there used to be a chair that ran up. There's a chair, there's the grizzly chair, and then there used to be another lift from the bottom. But this new gondola just makes it much faster. The uplift is really quick. You can get 10 people in it. It's pretty plush, to be honest. It's one of those really nice, modern, leather-seated. Yeah, it worked really well, especially on the days when the weather closed in.
And you mentioned the weather then. What was the snow like overall when you were there?
We were super lucky. So we drove over, and even coming out of Calais on the weekend at the start of April, there was snow on the ground not far south of Calais. And so that week was really good. And then it snowed again on the weekend of the 9th and the 10th. We did have a bit of rain at times, but so fortunate, given a season that's been a little bit thin on the ground in terms of the amount of snow that has fallen. As Lindsay mentioned, recently there's been really good snowfall in the Alps.
Excellent. So that was a good trip. And you've basically, after a long time without skiing, you've actually done pretty well, because you had a trip out to the ski test, and then you're up in Scotland, and now you've been to Les Arcs. So like in a month, you must have packed in a lot of ski days, right?
Yeah, I've been really, really fortunate. It's been really loaded on the end of the season. Many people got away before I did, but March and April was pretty special.
And Lindsay, just coming back to you then, you mentioned that, you had that extra snow coming in when you were out in Verbier, but you stayed in Chable. And, some listeners might not realise that's kind of the access point, really, isn't it, for Verbier? Basically, everyone passes through there.
Absolutely. And the reason we chose to stay there is that now the gondola, since the beginning of December, has become public transport. So it's open from 5 o'clock in the morning till 5 to midnight. So you can still go up and down with no problem. So before you'd have to catch a bus, which was a bit of a pain really with skis and everything else. But now it's really, really good access, and it's a great place to stay if you don't want to be up in the, you know, the busy part of Verbier. So as a family, that worked really well for us.
Excellent. So that's good to hear about the snow there. We do have a couple of snow reports in this episode. They are from James Gambrill in Baqueira in Spain and from Tsang in Plagne. They're both a little dated now, but I think you'll still find them interesting. So I'll drop those in now.
So it's James Gambrill here reporting from Baqueira in the Spanish Pyrenees. It is the 10th of April. We have spring weather. But yesterday we had snow. The conditions are amazing. I mean, for 10th of April, the conditions are amazing. You'd be happy if you had these conditions any time in the season. There's a lot of snow. The coverage is brilliant. It's still holding firm up until about 2 o'clock, which is when we stop for lunch anyway in Spain. And then it's still decent right through to the end of the day. So amazing end to the season here. They've obviously got another couple of weeks to go to take them to the end of Easter. And according to the resort, they've had the busiest season ever. So it certainly seems as if things are back here, and it's been a really positive winter for them. So my first time skiing in the Pyrenees, my first time skiing in Spain, and it's just been an amazing experience. So I recommend you check it out.
Hi Ski Podcast, this is Jen from Tsang Alpine and Ski Marketing, and I'm here in super sunny Plagne. And as well as doing the snow report for you, I wanted to get a little bit of the ski atmosphere and sounds around the resort into your ears this week. So we are actually out on the mountain, and I'm at the top of the Leverset chairlift in Plagne Centre, well just above Plagne Centre, and we're going to ski down towards Champagny. So yeah, we are mid-April, and Plagne is actually open till the 30th, so right to the end of April, and I think it's the longest we've been open since I've been here in resort, which is well over 15 years now. We are looking at some absolutely fantastic spring skiing conditions. So the first couple of weekends of April we had some really big snow dumps, but I think if it's the same as around the other resorts, what's happened is we've had temperature drops, big snowfalls, and then almost immediately the temperature's risen straight away. So we've had awesome snow powder for like 24 hours, but then it's warmed up and got heavy quite quickly. But just last weekend we were skiing in kind of knee-deep, waist-deep powder at the top of the Roche de Millau and the top of the Leverset. It was just fantastic. Having said that, on the piste it's been pretty much incredible all season. There have been weeks where it's been a bit polished and more hard-packed, but overall the SAP and the pisteurs have just done an incredible job of keeping everything in really great shape. Quick break there while I just jump on the next chairlift, and I don't know if you can hear, but it's so Easter. Can you hear the birds singing? It's amazing. So as I'm recording this, the whole resort is open, so you can head all the way down into Montcheval, Montalbert, Les Coches, all those areas, and of course the connection over to Les Arcs is open. However, those areas are going to close the week before Le Plagne and Les Arcs do. So Le Plagne and Les Arcs are open to the 30th, but Montcheval, Les Coches and the Vanoise will all close on the weekend of the 23rd and 24th. But you can get to all areas of the piste map. There's a couple of runs that are closed. The off-piste is not great, I wouldn't recommend it. We did actually have an avalanche in resort last week with a couple of British skiers that were caught not far from the town, just above the Grand Rochette area. They are both okay. One was taken to Grenoble Hospital, but it is a really good reminder that if the pistes are shut, then it is for a reason right now. So we should talk about Easter because it is technically peak season right now. And yes, there are some bottlenecks kind of when the ski schools are meeting. So at the bottom of the Bergerie and like the Colossus when you're heading home at the end of the day. But actually once you get off the lift, it's super, super quiet. So I'm actually sat on this chairlift and I'm the only one on the chair right now, which is just fab. And it's pretty much time for me to jump off the lift, so I'll say goodbye now. But if you are on the fence about an Easter spring skiing holiday, 100% do it. And that's me signing out from sunny Plagne. Take care, and we'll see you on the slopes. Bye.
Hello, this is Stephen Spears with a quick end of season update for Glencoe Mountain. I was at Glencoe on Saturday the 23rd of April, and the snow was lovely in the top runs with lovely weather, a little bit of a nice breeze to keep you cool in the heat. And some really nice snow in the top part of the main basin, and then some pretty steep moguls just beyond the Haggis Trap, which weren't typical of what you get in Scotland, but good fun, but quite challenging. There was a good run down the wall to get around down to the lower slopes, although a bit of a walk, 10 minutes walk, was required on the way up to get from the top of the access chair to the cliffhanger chairlift, which took you up to the bottom of the main basin. Great snow, great end of season. The spring run was officially closed, but a report said that the snow was great. A lot of people enjoying the bangers and slash competition, the bank slalom that was on there, and looked like a lot of fun was being had there as well. Great day to end the season with lovely weather, and hopefully I'll be back next season to tell more snow reports.
And listener, you will have noticed that last-minute addition from Stephen Spears in Glencoe, skied this weekend. We don't have Katie Crow from Battleface with us this week, so there's no Battleface travel section. But if you are travelling either for a late ski holiday or a summer holiday, make sure you go to battleface.com for a quote, and you can also check their Sherpa Travel Tool on the latest rules as far as travel is concerned. Right, so I also just got back from skiing myself. We were in Les Deux Alpes. We went over to Courchevel. I'll mention that as well. And that was a family holiday, a bit like Al's. It was one that kind of been rolled over for a couple of years. We had 3 other families with us from Brighton. And, oh, what a joy it was. It was just so good to be there. And I was particularly pleased because I'd actually picked a Deux Alpes because Easter is quite late and I wanted to make sure we had somewhere high to go. And they have a glacier up there and skiing up to 3,600. And certainly we were away from the 9th to the 16th. Lower down, you could ski back down into resort, but by the end of the week, we were all taking the gondola down because it was just, a bit heavy in the afternoons. I don't really trust that type of snow when it's really churny. It's a kind of easy time to get injured. But higher up, snow was magnificent. So good. I think, Lynsey, you've skied in Les Deux Alpes before. Have you skied all the way up the glacier, I assume?
Yes, I have. But as a snowboarder, I would have quite enjoyed coming down that sloppy bit at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's great up there. And the views are phenomenal. You see across the whole of the Isère. It's just really such a good ski area.
Yeah, that's right. While we were in Deux Alpes, I could see outdoors really clearly on the other side of the valley. And I happened to know via Twitter that Vanessa Fisher, who's appeared on the show quite a few times, is on holiday over there. So I was looking out for her on the other side of the mountain. But I think, Les Deux Alpes does have maybe a slight advantage in that it goes higher. And it was still pretty damn cold up on the glacier, particularly when the wind is blowing. They obviously ski there in summer as well. And they've been doing a lot of snow preservation to keep the snow in really good condition for summer. And you can see that they were starting to focus on that because they have 4 different T-bars up there, but they only have one running while they're there, and the other ones they'll bring into play during the summer. And as I said, the snow itself, really was very good. There's so much skiing above 2,600 meters, which is where the first stage of the Jondry, the main gondola from resort, stops. We were able just to get up high and have really good skiing. And maybe you did need to manage a bit, but off the glacier, they actually have quite a nice long run down to called Signal, which is an excellent one. And quite unusual, I guess, in some respects, in that some of the higher skiing is not as steep as in some resorts. So skiers who are perhaps not as experienced can still enjoy it up there as well, although there is a blue run down to resort. You mentioned you're a snowboarder, Lynsey. Some of our snowboarders didn't like some of the chusses on the way back to resort.
Yeah, there's a few. There are a few, but you just need to get your speed up. And once you get used to them, I bet they got over it in the end.
Al, you've been to Les Deux Alpes as well, I assume, at some point?
Yeah, I've been a few times. It's where my kids originally learned to ski.
Right.
And it's fantastic because where we were staying in the Mark Warner accommodation at the time, there's a beginner's area right beside it. And then for me and my wife, there's just some epic off-piste if you want to go and just hike a little. Yeah,
well, even without hiking, you can access quite a lot of the off-piste, particularly off the glacier. On the first day when I got there had actually been that powder that you're referring to, Lynsey, that came over on the weekend. We arrived on the Saturday. And on the Sunday, I just went for a sneaky ski before all of the rest of the group had got going. And I was lucky enough to be the first to come down a couple of runs and got some powder. And that was great. You also have in Deux Alpes a couple of unpasted black runs, which present quite a good challenge as well. But coming down off the glacier towards Signal, there's a big range of off-piste. And in fact, I've been with a guide before who's taken me to lots of different areas. I had thought about going to Le Grave, but ultimately it was too difficult to try and fit that in and give up a whole day of skiing in Les Deux Alpes.
And the family wouldn't have been too happy with you disappearing on them.
Hey, it was quite strange because I was actually that kind of ski guide for the week. It was taking me back to my days as a resort rep. Lynsey and I, worked together out in the Alps at different points. And If as a ski guide, when I was working for Bladen Lines or Ski Beach Villas or whoever it was, Crystal Holidays, at the time, you would never take a group of 18. That's just like too big. And I said at the start, I'm not really sure this is going to work, but we all settled into our own ways. And I did that kind of, first day tour de piste type of thing. But, I did enjoy that. But equally, when I go on the various press trips I go on, I absolutely love going with a guide who just, takes all of that thinking out of it, and you can just follow them around the place. That's really good. I will say that I drove there and back in an electric vehicle. And I'm writing an article for the Telegraph that I need to get on with about that experience. We went out in a Ford Mustang Mach-E. We have our Tesla 3 here, but this is a much bigger range, 330 mile range, or official 330 mile range. I'm not going to go into all of the details of that now. But I can say we had a mixed experience. I really wanted to come on and say, wow, this was so easy. Don't worry about it at all. You can easily drive an electric car to the Alps. You can, but you just got to be super organized. There is just so much forethought required when you have a range and there are only certain places you can charge. And there are actually millions of places or thousands of places you can charge. But what you want to do is you want to be able to charge quickly. And therefore, there's a limited number of places, particularly if you're not in a Tesla, because there are lots of Tesla superchargers, which is what I've been used to in our car at the moment. But if you're not in a Tesla, we use the Ionity network. And they've got a great set of chargers. We never had to queue for them. You could always get on. You could charge your car up quickly. But it's just not as widespread and not as well organized. And then one of the most irritating things was we found that on more than one occasion, you've got the airs, the service stations, but they only have the charger on one side of the road, not on the other side of the road. So if you're going northbound, then it could be southbound. You end up, depending how you've planned it, having to do a little loop and just wasting time and mileage. So, I'm going to write that up in full for the Telegraph. I mean, what I did find interesting is we drove all the way from Deux Alpes to Courchevel, and then I drove up and down Courchevel and over to Mirabella quite a lot. That was absolutely fine. What's really interesting driving in the mountains as opposed to on the motorway is that the energy cost is nowhere near as high as you'd think, because all of these electric cars have regenerative braking, so that when you're going downhill, you're actually adding to the range the whole time.
Oh, that's really clever.
You're not using up any power at all. So you do burn it when you go uphill. But, I found we were getting kind of 250 miles on a charge driving around from Latania up to Courchevel and down. And indeed, when we left both resorts, we drove for about 40 miles before we started to go into negative range, because we built up so much on the downhill actually leaving resorts that it just increased the range. So I found that really interesting. It makes me think. I have done a previous podcast special about electric cars in ski resorts. So you can get a decent range. You're using it up and down in the mountains. It's more about the issue of driving on the motorway. And if you want to drive at what most people would consider to be a reasonable speed, then you do reduce that effective range, and you need to think carefully about how you're going to plan it overall. But I will collect my thoughts and I will write up that Telegraph article, and I will share it in due course. And I hope to do a video which I'll put onto the Skipedia YouTube channel.
Can I ask a question about when you were charging? How long's a quick charge? Because you said you wanted a fast charge.
I mean, it depends what state of charge you're at the moment. If you were really low, let's say you've got less than 50 miles left, near the bottom, that could take 40 minutes to get it up to 90%, let's say.
Oh, that's pretty fast, though.
I consider that to be pretty fast. In the end, I actually decided that it's better to have 2 shorter stops of, say, 20 minutes each and one longer one of 40, because, that's still enough time for, everybody to get out, stretch their legs, get some food, get a bit of sunshine, etc. 20 minutes is fine. You don't need to have 40 minutes. Again, it all depends exactly where those chargers are kind of placed, how easy it is to get to them. But I thought that was a better way. You don't need to go all the way down to kind of the last few miles. You can just top up as you go. And actually, the way chargers work for electric vehicles is they charge much faster in the lower part of the battery than the upper part of the battery, if that makes sense. Once you've got past 50%, it's much slower for adding everything on. But that experience was good, and I had a really good time in Les Deux Alpes. One of the opportunities I had in Les Deux Alpes was to speak to the mayor of the town, and I did a couple of interviews with him. Firstly, about sustainability, and secondly, about the new lifts. Now, it was a bit of a long conversation, so I'm going to put the one about the new lifts in the next episode 94. But let's have a listen to that chat about Les Deux Alpes and their approach to sustainability now. Great. So I'm here today with Christophe Aubert, who is Mayor of Les Deux Alpes. Nice to meet you, Christophe.
Nice meeting you, Iain.
I've had an excellent week here. We're just coming to the end of the week now. And, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, I was reading the press pack that I received, and it talks about how integrating green values into everything you do is a really important part of what you're looking for. And I noticed that you're planning to, or you're bidding to be awarded the Flocon Vert accreditation. And listeners to the podcast will be familiar with this because we've talked to people from Morzine before and from Les Arcs. There's not many resorts that have the Flocon Vert accreditation. So I wondered, why? What's your motivation? Why are you trying to do this?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, it's very nice to have you here, and I hope you really had a very enjoyable stay. And to come back to Flocon Vert, it's pretty much a tool for us, and we are really working into our ways to have a more sustainable economy and stay and integration and projects for our whole community. So economy has really to be linked with all these, let's say, green values, like you said.
Yeah.
And actually to go a bit further, even if you had money to deal with this project, you still have to have people on site all the year round, and they have to be acquainted with these values, and they have to be part of it.
So it's not just about the incoming tourists, it's about the life of the resort as well.
Exactly. It's maybe a bit hard for me to express, but it's really a project that takes everyone together. And of course, we are convinced that we have to take care of our whole life around environment, that we got a glacier, which is a treasure, but we have to take care of it. And it's not just about grooming it. It's about having electrical buses, like we said. It's all about having, like you came here, electric cars, and to be able to plug them in. It's very important. We want to separate all the garbage.
Yeah.
I won't be more detailed here, but
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
There's so many different elements of it, aren't there? But you mentioned about how it's important for the town in itself, and I understand that. I read some really interesting research this week from Booking.com that said that 71% of people looking to travel want to go or want to be sustainable on their travels. So it's obviously also quite important that Les Deux Alpes, for example, could say, yes, we've got a Flocon Vert accreditation, so that consumers, holiday makers, can know that they're going to a destination which is making the right efforts towards sustainability.
Again, this Flocon Vert is really a tool that makes us organize all our ideas around these three directions we talked about.
Yeah.
And when you talk about how do I come here, it's very important that we work on it, because actually 70% of the pollution that we are emitting for greenhouse effects is coming from the thermic cars, petrol and so on. We're really working on how you would come tomorrow here to Les Deux Alpes, to l'Alpe d'Huez, to this big area, and working more and more with cable transportations, so that you would drop your car somewhere in the next biggest town and be able to come here without taking your car. This has a huge effect on our sustainability, because 70% of this greenhouse effect would be linked to it. So let's remember that tomorrow you could come to Les Deux Alpes with your car, electric car. You would move in town between the bars, the ski areas, everything, different leisures, by electric buses or just by foot. And when you want to go outside let's say to the next closest village, you would go with cables.
And that kind of leads me on to another question, which I guess I might as well ask you now. I've heard for many years talk of a link between Les Deux Alpes and Alpe d'Huez, like a lift system between the two, and maybe that would fit into that. You're saying that people would park down in the valley and then take a lift up. Is that ever going to happen? A link between the two resorts?
I hope it will, because this really belongs to a philosophy, belongs to a vision that we have. Let's say as soon as you arrive in this area that we call Oison, that you turn on the right to this green big valley, with all these big mountains. Let's say you arrive there and you would be able to drop off the car and get into a cable car that takes you to Alpe d'Huez or to Deux Alpes or any other villages that are linked to it. For example, we already have this cable car taking us down to Venosque, which is very traditional. It's working actually 7 to 8 p.m., almost all the season long, and very soon all year long. And tomorrow, we intend to have the same thing taking us from Les Deux Alpes to Oris, to Alpe d'Huez, and they already got it between Alpe d'Huez, Oz, Vaujany. They will get it between Alpe d'Huez and Bourdoisan. It's just taking us a longer time because we want really to find the right place to set the pylons and to have minimal effects on everything that's with nature concerned. And we're taking our time, but it will be coming. And the philosophy is that you drop off your car and then you move with your bike, with your feet, and within nature, just like you'd go for adventure. These type of projects that you talk about, I think lots of resorts understand the importance of trying to reduce the traffic up to resort. And I think another project that's been discussed for a long time is an access lift from Cluse up to Plagne, and then also more recently in Courchevel they're going to be introducing a new lift from Basel to go up to Courchevel, with the idea that more people will leave their cars down at the bottom. And it makes total sense because so many people are driving up the hill. It would be much better to leave the cars at the bottom, and then obviously people can travel by public transport to that hub in Bourg d'Oison and go from there. But this thinking really takes a lot of aspects into concern, because you have to find, for example, places to park when you're in Bourg-d'Oison. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to drop off. So you need to take time for this infrastructure to take place, or you have to organize other kind of transportation from Grenoble with other coaches, but like electric buses maybe. And we even want to get the train closer to Les Deux Alpes. I can't tell you where and when exactly, but we're really making plans into the future, and we hope everything will be fine for us very soon. It's really sustainable, and it's really worth doing it, because we got snow. We will have snow. We got more than 50 years ahead of us. They stopped computing after 50 years. It's just that the models were too short, but we know we can do it even longer. One of the reasons I chose Deux Alpes, and we're here with 4 families, is because it goes so high. I knew we'd be coming out here quite late, mid-April. And to be able to ski with quite a large amount of the area above 3,000 meters has been great. And, up on the glacier, it's amazing. Now, you do a lot of work to preserve that glacier, don't you? Because, I know that you're looking at it in the long term. How are you kind of protecting the snow up there? It's been a work that has taken a lot of studies for a long time. We got engineers. There's even one which is full-time working on the glacier, full-time engineer on the glacier. He's been doing measurements and then studies and then projections. And now we know exactly what we have to do to preserve it. For example, it's very important that there is always snow on the ice, because the ice is melting when the sun hits it. But if there is snow, it's so white, so bright that most of the heat goes away. And of course, it's very high, so it stays cold as well. Yeah, you can see up there. I have been here in summer as well, and in summer, a much larger area of it is used. At the moment, you can see the snow has been spread out across the glacier, and that's obviously part of that's the reason why. Exactly, that's a way of working on it on the winter to preserve it for longer terms. And for now, for example, I think you've seen these tracks we've got, because there is snow, but there is also wind, a lot of strong winds in the winter. So when you got these tracks, it stops the wind and the snow stays on the glacier. It doesn't go into the valley. And the more snow there is, the more it will be packed in the summer. The second thing is when we groom the glacier, the snow will be packed, and after a while it becomes ice. We had this experiment. It was 2 years ago. We had a little lake. We pumped the lake and we made some snow. And actually, some years after, we were able to find it over again. It was inside the different
the same
layers.
snow, that type of snow, right? Okay.
We found it actually some years after.
Right.
It was just like a slice we made by, You could see that there was this layer of snow that we made. We know how to regenerate, and
right.
That's the work we're doing. And for the nearest future, we're working on another, like a bigger lake, which the main use will be to enhance the glacier, to trying to preserve it, maybe not to make it bigger than it is, but just to bring the snow that it needs to stay just as nice as it is today.
Yeah, and you use snow farming on the glacier as well, in that you cover, literally cover some of the snow. Is that right?
We did it for experiment, and we took these data back to the scientists, and now we're just presenting the studies to the government. We're in the process of having this authorization.
Right.
That's really a team work, and working with the government, with the engineers, and with us.
And the pea bashers or snow groomers themselves, I think I read somewhere that they use a combination of GPS and radar to monitor the depth of the snow at different points.
Yeah, it's very modern equipment. The grooming, the machines, they're just as modern, just as like a plane. They are really like rocket scientists.
The ski lifts are due to close on the 1st of May and then reopen again on the 28th of May, aren't they?
Actually, the resort is always open, but it's just there is a season for skiing and there is a season for training for competitors. We got world champions training here, and so indeed it's opening again for them for training. So skiing, biking, or trailing as well. End of May, and we got the cycling coming back, Tour de France and all these other competitions with mountain biking.
Familiar with a few of those? A Mountain of Hell, is that one of?
That's the one.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Like a world championship.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a video of it before. It's amazing. Also, another race you've got coming up at the end of this month, the snow bike race, where you ski down, from the glacier to resort, and then tag the next member of your team, and then they cycle down to Vanosk.
It's pretty much the principle. It's actually a team race, and we go by two, and the two have to get together at the bottom, and half of it is skiing, half of it is with the bike, and I'm looking forward to do it again.
You've done it.
I did it, and I'll do it again.
Were you a skier or a biker?
I'll do both.
Right, okay, brilliant.
You can come and be there.
There'll have to be another one. I've done the snow night trail here before, which has been great fun. I've skied here in summer, but I would like to come here in summer again and maybe expand on my mountain biking a little bit.
There's more thrust and more emotions when you go down. It's go faster.
It's very scary. I don't mind going fast on skis. I'm not quite experienced enough to go fast on a bike. Well, I really enjoyed chatting to Christophe Aubert, Mayor of Les Deux Alpes, and you can listen to part 2 of that interview in our next episode. Let's jump from France to Austria and bring in Lynsey. Now, Lynsey works for Heaven Publicity, a PR company, represent all sorts of different resorts, but one of the resorts you represent is Ischgl, and I found that really interesting. I think you've probably recently taken on that account. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct. During the pandemic.
During the pandemic. Now, you mentioned the pandemic, so you mentioned it first, so I'm allowed to bring it up. Ischgl did get quite a lot of criticism for being this super spreader location. And, I've been, I've looked into this in quite a lot, but I'd like to know your view. Do you think the resort was unfairly tarnished with that label?
Well, back then there was no testing, and they were caught by surprise like everyone else in the world. And I think everyone can see that now. The Austrian authorities reached the same conclusion. The Innsbruck state prosecutor concluded an 18-month probe into sort of criminal liability in Ischgl a few months ago, saying it had, there was no case to answer. And I think, as everywhere in the Alps, as I was traveling in sort of January, February, March 2020, people had colds all over the Alps. So yes, there was no testing then. So it was seen that way, but it was, not the fairest of titles to be given.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they certainly weren't, weren't alone in respect of people catching COVID, let's say, in ski resorts, but it did feel that they, got a bit of a beating. And in fact, the ski industry as a whole, really was put up as a scapegoat for bringing, COVID into the UK. We're not going to go into details. I'll try and keep the show non-political, so we'll just move on. But I was interested, in relation to that. Ischgl were obviously very aware of that situation. And I think they made a few changes to resort life in the lead up to this winter season because of all of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you remember, there was no ski season in 2021 because the hotels and restaurants were closed in Ischgl for nearly all the season. But the cable cars could run, but Ischgl actually decided against it that season already, and because that was what they decided. And then they had a delayed and restricted season in 21-22 this time. There was the obligation to wear masks. There was no night gastronomy. There were curfews. And it actually, in the end, opened 3 weeks later than planned in mid-December. But the lift company, the Silvrettersbahn, they spared no effort, to ensure a safe season. They made an absolute beeline that everything was safe. And they invested around 700,000 euros in hygiene measures. And that included new intelligent camera systems on the 3 cable cars, which, gave people the chance to look, optimize waiting times in the queuing areas by looking at this on an app. And this was, a real-time app. And then, of course, on top of that, all the cable cars cabins were disinfected with cold fogging equipment, which got rid of 99.9% of viruses, bacteria and spores in the cable cars. The same method was also implemented in the ski buses every day, the same in sports shops, the ski lockers, toilet facilities, and even the first aid stations. So, that was quite imperative. And also the whole valley, the Paznaun Valley, was also one of the first regions to introduce wastewater monitoring, meaning they could identify possible clusters in advance. And this whole safety package, as well as strict monitoring and compliance with the legal Austrian framework, gave guests, a maximum safe and relaxed holiday experience. And as you know, there were things, by the Austrians, it was the 3G or even at times 2G. This was adhered to at all times by the resort and by people traveling. And the best thing about it was that people were just happy to be back up on the mountain. When I was out there in January, everybody was like, we're happy to follow the restrictions. We're on a mountain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think certainly in the early part of the season, everybody felt that the joy at just being on the mountains again was wonderful. And I had friends who went out to Ischgl this year, and I found it quite interesting because there was this thought that après. I think there was a quote, wasn't there, from the mayor or something saying, "Oh, après ski is over," but I'm not quite sure that was the case. Is it?
No, he didn't mean it as it was over, but they did bring in some things like banning people drinking in the car parks because that was something that had happened in the past. So people were restricted to be in bars and in those areas. So it wasn't banned, but there were time restrictions by the Austrian framework that was put there. So it wasn't banned, and there was nice, gentle après, not, full on, which people would have thought of. And that was the same everywhere, to be honest, this season.
Well, I did see some après that looked like it was a bit beyond the gentle après in the Folie Douce over in VT earlier in the season. Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. So, après didn't finish. It just, perhaps was focused on the bars themselves. And overall, how would you say the winter went in Ischgl? I mean, I'm particularly interested, actually, I don't know if you have any data on it, how did the numbers go for people buying lift tickets, particularly maybe from the UK as well?
Well, with the later start into the season, 3 weeks later than normal, the restrictions within the country, and as well with restrictions from other countries, so Germany put Austria on the high risk. The UK wasn't allowed to go. And it also was the whole thing. It was very hard for families to travel to Austria because of all the restrictions and what wasn't being done here in the UK for teenagers, etc. So how did it go? It went better than expected. We don't have the figures yet because, of course, March and April, well, particularly this month, are a lot bigger numbers. But it did go better than anticipated, given everything. And they have said that, they did feel the British were back, but we don't have the numbers yet. It's too early in the season.
Excellent. How was the snow? Because my impression is that the snow was very good this season.
It was really good. And of course, the thing is in Ischgl, it's a really high resort. So, the snow levels were really good. When I went there, we had powder. It was phenomenal. It wasn't hugely busy, but it was really, really good snow. So they have had a really good snow season, skiing back into the village. So yeah, really good.
Yeah, and I mean, you alluded to the height there. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Ischgl is known for opening early and closing late every season. Maybe there were some issues this year that delayed the opening, but the skiing is still going on at the moment. It's very famous for its on-mountain events. I recently came across the fact that there's a kind of ongoing music event all the way through the end of the season called Spring Blanc. Celebrating the end of the season. It's on right now. I wondered if you could just tell us a little bit more about it.
Oh, absolutely. It started on the 2nd of April. It goes on till the 1st of May, and it's basically celebrating spring and snow. Hence, white spring is the literal translation. And Ischgl's not the only ski resort where you can still ski in April, but it's one of the few that make it special. So this is making it special. And as well as the main bands, there is more on offer than normal than we've had in the past. There's gourmet experience and other musical treats. There's sundowner events, mountain breakfast on offer, and like dine around options. So that's quite exciting. And then, of course, the live concerts themselves. They take place on the piste, open air on the Alp, which is located at 2,300 meters. And it's free with the lift pass. So first up, we had Simply Red on April the 2nd for the new series, and it had 10,000 concert goers, which is pretty huge. And then during Easter, there were performances by German artists. There was Max Mutzi, and the weekend before there was a band called No Angels that were on Alp Trida, which aren't so well known to us. But the next band that, of course, the Brits do know is Kings of Leon playing on the 30th. So you can still get out there, and that'll be at the Alp as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big name, but they are just one in a long line of seriously big acts who've played Ischgl. So who are the others who've topped the bill, and which of them have you been to see?
Well, I would like to go and see Kings of Leon because they're renowned for their rousing live performances, but sadly I can't go. But anyway, previous concerts have included everybody from The Killers, Elton John, Scissor Sisters, Kylie, Rod Stewart, Lionel Richie, Beach Boys, etc., etc. I've been to several concerts over the years. I won't say how many, but when I was at Ingham's, I used to go quite a lot. And they've been really, really good. They're all very different. But the best thing is being on top of that mountain. It's just so amazing.
They've all been different, but if you had to pick of the ones that you've been to, which one was the best? Which would that be?
I think one of my favourites was Sir Elton John in 2008. I love the fact at the time his rider list asked for palm trees to be delivered to his set on Alp. I found that quite fun. And I also love the fact the grand piano had to get up there onto the stage. That was a feat in itself. And he'd also whipped the crowd into a frenzy. And if you think about it, it's really hard to get tickets for Elton John. And now he's doing his farewell tour. But it was amazing that I could just go up there, have a ski ticket and see him live.
That is amazing. And that's great. Well, that sounds amazing. And thanks. That is an extremely thorough update on Ischgl. Really, really interesting. And, as Lindsay says, this is going to be published on the 25th. You could still get out there in time to see Kings of Leon for free. I guess if you factor that into your costs, you're comparing it to going to like some stadium or something like that, where you get a much better atmosphere and a more beautiful environment in the Alps. It actually could work out some amazing value if you really did it like that.
Well, absolutely. And if I've just recently bought tickets to go and see a concert, and they are really expensive. So I think you're right. If you factor it all in and you want to have a good weekend away and a bit of a ski, I think it's amazing value.
Cool. Well, that's brilliant, Lindsay. Thanks very much for that. Right, let's turn to equipment now with our resident equipment expert, Al from skikitinfo.com. Now, regular listeners will know that you went out to the ski test a little while ago and you get the opportunity to try all of next year's gear early. There are a couple of items that you mentioned to me there that particularly impressed you that you wanted just to talk a little bit about. I think the first one was the Atomic new ski, the bent ski. Is that right?
Yeah, so Atomic has worked with Chris Benchetler, who's a pro free skier, amazing skier, artist, surfer, for around 14 years. And they've had a couple of skis in the range, a big fat 120 width, which is his ski. And then he's also been involved in the development of a 100 width, which I've had for a few years now. But for next winter, they've got a whole range by him called the Bent Family, going from 85. There are kids models, Groms models as well, but for bigger skiers for grown-ups, there's an 85, there's the 90, there's the 100, a 110, and a 120. So it's a big range.
But
so
those are the widths, right? What
they're the waist widths. Yeah. To be honest, the 100 is a good ski, wood core, glass laminate. I prefer things like their Maverick 95, which are a bit stiffer. But the new models, the 110, which is a twin tip, twin rocker ski, not my normal fare for skiing, was just amazing. And I know others that have skied this, the guys from Four Line and things have been on this and just been blown away by it. It's just amazing. It's not expensive. It's about £550 for the ski. So at the Olympics, they had a lot of skiers on a graphic for the Bent 90. Cheekily, I mean, it wasn't actually the Bent 90 ski. They were still on the Punks free ski because the pro athletes hadn't got to test it fully. I know they're going to be on the Bent 90 going forward. So I want to test that. And I took it out to Vallandry with me for the trip, and it's just incredible for something that is really designed for people to go and jib about on, which I did. I took it in the park. It was awesome for jumping on, and it greatly improved my switch riding. I am not a freestyle rider, but for going about the piste, it just lit me up. It was such good fun. It's about 400 quid for the ski, and it just kind of blew me away. And something that is that great value can be so good all round.
Cool. So you said 400 and you mentioned 550. Is the difference coming with bindings as well?
Oh, so the 550 was for that wider ski, that 110, which is a new one, which I'd skied out in Austria at ski test. Yeah. And then that £400 price point is for the Bent 90. Now, all of the skis across that Bent range have Chris Benchetler graphics, and they just are so striking. Yeah, they're pretty epic. And yeah, it blew me away.
Okay, awesome. Excellent. Firstly, I love the fact, Al, that you're still getting in the park and jibbing with all the youngsters. That's great. And secondly, it sounds very interesting. One of the things you mentioned there was about how during the Olympics, a number of the athletes were skiing on Atomic skis with different decals, with these bent decals, and that actually reminds me of something that I was told before, that sometimes you know this actually happens quite often. You might even get people wearing ski boots where it's. Tell me if you think this is true or not. A different brand, but right. They're a different brand, but they have their sponsors brand decals on the outside of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really commonplace in competitive snow sports. These companies have got to operate commercially, and what consumers buy is different to what pro athletes ski generally, especially on the race scene. And it costs a lot of money to develop boots. So partway through development, they might be trialing different things that have a different graphic on it. For Atomic, because I've asked them about this, because I was just curious as to why at the Olympics they were skiing on the Punk ski, which is a proper full freestyle twin ski, but with the new Bent 90 graphic, and it was really down to the fact that the athletes didn't get to have enough time on the product before the Olympics. They're there to compete first and foremost, and that's what it was about. But they're all going to be on this new Bent 90 going forward. I think they're already on it, a lot of them.
And I think another product that impressed you while you're out on the ski test was bindings from Strive.
So Atomic and Salomon are sister companies. They sit under the AMA brand. So does Armada. And with this Strive binding, so bindings are binding. You normally get given a certain binding on a ski. It looks a bit like their Shift hybrid touring binding, but it's not. It's a pure downhill binding, but it just really changed the feel of the ski. It's a less ramp than something like their Warden binding. It's a similar weight, but it feels a lot lighter on your feet, just the design of it. And because you are much closer to the ski for that sort of free ride experience where you want to be closer to the snow, have that connected feeling, it worked fantastically well. It's also got a wider mount plate, so you get better power through the edge of the ski. And I think this helped the ski have amazing performance on firm snow.
Okay, well, I might be opening a can of worms here, but how much of a ski's performance do you think is related to the ski, and how much of it is related to the binding that you're using with that ski?
It depends what you are doing. It does make a difference because we've tested a lot with different bindings on same skis. So it does make a difference. The biggest difference is if you're going to put a frame touring binding on it where the toe and the heel piece of the binding are connected by bars. That has the biggest impact on changing the dynamic of the ski because you create a dead spot in the middle. For regular downhill bindings where the toe and heel aren't connected, it's more about the boot position. So is the heel wrapped up really high, as it can be on some bindings, intentionally? And then how connected are you to the ski? Because for racing, you might want a lot of leverage, so you might be higher off. For free riding powder skiing, you might want to be more close to the top sheet of the ski.
Excellent. Well, that's really interesting. I think it's probably an opportunity to talk about bindings in a lot more detail, but we'll do that in another episode. That's brilliant, Al. Thank you very much for that. I just mentioned while we're on the kit section at this point, you might recall, listener, we had Rory from Duostone on the podcast a few weeks ago, and I managed to get hold of some of his wooden sunglasses that had impressed Al as well. They produce them as wooden sunglasses that start off with for paddleboarders dropping their glasses into the water. And I took those out with me to Des Alpes and really enjoyed it, and really enjoyed showing other people them as well, trying to hopefully drum up some more business for him. Only went skiing with them one day, but they did the business for me. Now, moving on to Courchevel. I mentioned earlier I went to Courchevel from Les Alpes. And the reason I went to Courchevel, it was just a short trip. I specifically went there because I was going to do an event called the Dynastar X3. It's a triathlon. It's a bit different from your normal triathlon in that it's a bike followed by a run followed by ski touring. And it starts kind of lower down the valley, about 800 meters. And you have to climb up to Courchevel 1850. About a 900-meter vertical ascent. Then do a run, 6K run through the woods and the snow and the slush, for that matter. And then ski tour from 1850 up to Sélère. Wow. Well, that was quite an event. They call it a triathlon hors norm, out of the ordinary. I really did enjoy it. I'm going to drop a video I did of it into the show notes. I'm writing an article for that one for Trail Running Magazine. So I will put a link to that when we come round to it. But really very, very entertaining day out for me. It's sort of thing I think Al could probably appreciate. You've done all of those sports before. Ever tried a triathlon quite in that format before, Al?
No, and I'm just thinking how punishing that is for your legs, because the triathlon that you and I used to race, some would be for your upper body and then a lot would be for your legs. And yes, it was punishing, but that was a full legs day for you. So how did you feel from it?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's kind of strange. I went into it with a bit of a cough, which is a bit annoying. But the worst thing about it was I got really, really badly sunburned on my thighs. Because I was wearing a tri-seat, and I had sun cream all over my neck and my nose and my face and everything, and completely forgot about my legs. And the cycling bit wasn't really an issue because that was quite early in the day, but the ski touring, an hour and 40 minutes from Courchevel up to Sélère, oh my God, it's awful, the sunburn on my legs. And otherwise, it didn't really feel too bad. I had done as best preparation as I could in the UK, living at sea level. And regular listeners will know I was ski touring when I was out in Andermatt around a month before the race. So, I kind of got through it. And I had been in Les Alpes at altitude the week beforehand. So that probably helped as well. But, while I was doing the event, or just after the event, I actually interviewed a couple of the other competitors to ask why they did it and what they thought about it. So let's have a listen to those. Tell me, Julie, why did you choose to do this race?
Because I love the mountain. I'm a French girl and I live in Savoie. And I love bike, ski and trail. So it's a perfect day for
it is a perfect day, isn't it?
Yes.
Salut à toi, congratulations on finishing the race.
Thanks
Tell me,
very much.
why did you enter? Why did you do this race?
Why would you do this? Oh, I don't know. We are plenty of friends, and we all live here actually.
Yeah.
And we are used to do lots of race by ski. And this one is the last one of the year, and well.
So special.
Well,
What was the best bit for you? Was it the cycle, the run, or the ski touring?
Actually, we've been skiing touring all the winter.
Right.
We haven't run and haven't bicycled for not a lot. So, and finally the ski touring was the worst because we were done.
Had it so hot as well. Well, merci à toi and congratulations.
Thanks very much.
I'm here with Guillaume, who's also completed the race today. How did you find it?
Very nice. The part in the trail was very technical in the snow, but it's my good advantage for me to run. So I gain maybe 20 place.
Wow, well done.
And then at the end, the only thing to do was to finish.
Exactly, to get to the finish.
And the last wall, I fall.
Oh yeah.
And I
listener, he's got a very nasty scar on his arm there. Ow.
So now I need a little medicine.
So that was really interesting.
Okay, well,
great event. If you're looking for a different
thanks very
challenge,
much.
I highly recommend it. They also have a summer event, which is another triathlon that's a bit different. You're actually rowing on rowing machines down in Le Prat, and then cycle up and then do a longer running section as well. We're coming to the close now. I enjoy all feedback about the show, so please do email me if you've got any comments. They're always welcome, and reviews are always welcome as well on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can contact us via social media and email as well. A couple of comments. Jen via Instagram said, I really enjoy the podcast. Thanks for creating it. Michael Gaff said, congratulations on the podcast award. It's well deserved. He listened to our comments about Andermatt and the Vail Resorts acquisition of Andermatt. He noted that the share price of Vail Resorts has gone down quite a bit. He was a little bit wary about it. Personally, I think they're probably in it for the real estate, but we'll be following that one quite closely. I'd also like to thank the many people who offered their congratulations for our award win for Best Winter Sports Podcast. I'll try and go through them briefly. They include Kathy P, John Sheehan, Adam W, Rachel W, Megan, Bethany, Vanessa, John Walton, Abby B, Ollie Russell Cohen, Crystal, Chris Thompson, Paul Glynn, Dan Fox, James Hawkins, Greg Hilton, Stephen S, Ian McIntosh, Martin Bell, yep, that one, Sarah B, Rob S, Neil D, Paddy, and Chemi Orcott. So thanks very much to all of you guys. I also had a question sent in from Andrew Brannan, long-time listener to the show. He said he's just been looking at a Landex station, which is a good train transfer for Ischgl, St Anton, etc. And according to Wikipedia, it says in the winter season, the station is frequented by ski trains, predominantly from Denmark and the Netherlands. Now, Andrew, I'm guessing you probably listened to the episode, but I'll put a link into the show notes. We had a really interesting interview with Yvonne from Salzburger Land, who talked about the chartered ski train that goes all the way from Malmo in Sweden down to Zellamzee. And I guess it will be another one of those operated by them. That train actually starts in Sweden. It stops in Denmark and the Netherlands on the way. And hopefully that is the start of many other train services, hopefully from the UK as well. Right, coming up in our next episode, episode 94, I've got Jasmine Taylor back on the show. She's going to be telling us about her best season ever. We've got journalist Rob Rees, who's been out in Narvik in Norway, and a really interesting interview about Svalbard. I haven't recorded it yet, but I know it's going to be interesting because that has got to be one of the most outlandish places to go skiing that you can do. So listen, don't forget, there are 144 episodes of the Ski Podcast to catch up on. Had a quick check, and there were 76 of them listened to in the last week. So if you've enjoyed listening to this and you think, wow, it must take so much time to plan it and record it and edit it, well, you'd be right. And you are welcome to make your own small gesture by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/The Ski Podcast. All contributions are welcome. And thanks to Andrew Brannan for his most recent one. Now, you can follow me on social media at Skipedia. and the podcast at the Ski Podcast. But for now, I'd like to thank Switzerland Tourism for sponsoring the show and thank my guest today, Lindsay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And Al, thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having us on again, Ian.
Finally, listener, thank you for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.